Now I want to dive into the Canadian announcement that is causing a further spiral, and all because Trump is desperate to show that he is a big boy and he is strong, and it's hurting all of us. So before I show you the clip that you're seeing there on screen where Trump proves how little he understands about stuff, here is the most recent news on the trade war. Ontario's premier, the leader of Canada's most populous province, announced that effective Monday, it is charging 25% more for electricity to 1.5 million American homes and businesses in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. Ontario provides electricity to Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. Quote, "I will not hesitate to increase this charge if the United States escalates. I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely." Something we mentioned, but could be catastrophic for folks. And as we go through this segment, please remember, let's go ahead and actually play this clip first before getting on to other things. Please remember that as Trump now tries to obfuscate responsibility and say that, bad economic metrics or the stock market having a tough time, that's because of Biden or that's because of Kamala. And we have to remember what he was saying on the campaign trail. And then I have more updates.
Well, repeatedly on the campaign trail, Trump warned a Democratic victory would lead to a decline in markets.
If Harris wins this election, you will quickly have a Kamala economic crash. You're going to have a crash. If we lose, you're going to have a crash like you wouldn't believe.
Well, he also said the only way to avoid a market crash would be to elect him. In fact, one line he used repeatedly throughout much of 2024.
Did you see that? Their stock market crashed when we won. Many people say that the only reason the stock market is up is because people think I am going to win. And we are a nation whose stock market's continued success is totally contingent on MAGA winning the next election. We are a nation whose stock market's continued success is contingent on MAGA winning the next election. If we don't win the next election, the stock market will crash, just like it did in 1929.
A man ran and rambled during his campaign as sad music played, and America said, "Sign me up." Sign me up, America said, after those clips. By the way, this is right now the last month Dow Jones, okay? Can you see? It's kind of showing up weird on my monitor, but down, 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 it's been going after Trump said what you saw there in those clips. So keep that in mind as we go through more on this. Here is Doug Ford on MSNBC, the Ontario premier.
On the electricity, stay tuned.
So what does that look like? What are the potential responses?
Well, we'll see. I'll talk to the team and we'll make an appropriate response to President Trump. Again, I stress, this is not the American people. Canadians know it. And if we go into a recession, it's self-made by one person. It's called President Trump's recession, which shouldn't be this way. We should be booming both countries right now.
Yeah, and I agree with him on that, but he's saying nothing is off the table in response to Trump's trade war. Now, a lot of the people over at Fox and MAGA supporters just believe, like God, we should just put our trust in Dumpy. And they say this as a replacement for an argument. Instead of going, here's what Trump's doing and it's logical, many of them just go, yeah, it's going to end up good. Or his first term was great. Really? Is that your memory of it? And I think there's a profound misunderstanding on their part of the misunderstanding or maliciousness on Trump's part. Because here's one example. Him talking about how we don't need Canadian lumber.
Tremendous tariff on lumber and things as such. And yet we don't need their lumber. We have more lumber than they do. We don't need Canada's lumber. So what I'm doing is
They call it lumber. Comes from a lumber plant. You have to make sure. Can't even get that out. You got to make sure to water the lumber plant.
Signing an executive order freeing up our forests so that we're allowed to take down trees and make a lot of money and then reharvest trees. Also, we're cutting fire divides. A fire divide is a 50-yard to 70-yard swath where the trees can't, it's long enough so trees don't burn forever until you can get them out. And those trees can be sold and made a lot of money with.
Okay, so Trump, in response to Doug Ford's announcement, we went over this already, but posted a panicked Truth Social post saying in response to that, he's doubling the tariff on steel and aluminum, I think it was, for Canadian imports. And so he's going to slap that on, and then Doug Ford's going to escalate. And no one's going to win, but a lot of people are going to lose. Now, an account on TikTok, Miss Mimini78, to source it, posted this video about the clip that we just watched.
Why should we be buying lumber from other countries?
Because that's where the trees are. These different colors are different kind of trees, and what you need to know is that this is the kind of trees that we like to build houses out of. We can also use these ones, but they're not as good. And as you can see, Canada's just trees galore. So I guess we could cut down our national forest to make 2x4s. But unfortunately, we would actually run out pretty quick. And we'd have to wait another decade for those trees to grow again so we can harvest them again. And another interesting thing about trees is that the farther north they grow, the slower they grow. And the slower they grow, the harder the wood is, which makes it better. The wood is also better the longer you let the trees grow before you cut them. And these are all uncut forests. When it comes down to it, Canada's wood is just longer, harder, thicker, and uncut. And they are eager to let us
Very uncircumcised forests there in Canada.
Have it. We should just let their wood come all over America. Because in reality, we just don't have enough forests in the United States to keep up with the demand for construction. In fact, this is a post that I made.
Hey, I didn't watch to this part of the video yet. Can someone explain to me how the words that left his mouth right after I made that joke were these?
When it comes down to it, Canada's wood is just longer, harder, thicker, and uncut. And they are eager to let us have it. We should just let their wood come all over America.
Oh, okay. He's actually doing the same thing. That's funny. Our wood should come over all of America. Wow. So I don't know about that prescription, but, but the point that he's making is an important one. Trump does this thing where he goes, we don't need anything from anyone. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their long, harder, older wood. We don't need that from Canada, right? And he's right. We don't need it. But we might want it. And I can tell you American consumers will want it. And so if he continues these escalations because of just, I don't know if it's a critical thinking issue, an understanding issue, a knowledge issue, or if he's working on something, as I know I keep repeating, that is malicious, but I don't exactly get what his intended goal would be here. But regardless, he's acting as someone who has no understanding of the economic intertwinement and how we benefit from it, lumber being one example. And so he just blurts out something that sounds nice to people of, we don't need their lumber, we can do our own lumber. And in reality, it would just undermine American consumers if we isolated in the way that Trump intends. Then you have the Canadian Green Party leader, Elizabeth May, saying this about Trump.
We have been as a country to put it mildly, we've faced unprecedented challenges since the election of Donald Trump in November, and more recently since his inauguration January 20th. I want to share with Canadians how much being able to say we are Team Canada, being able to ride on the strength of the Canadian people standing up, grabbing a flag and waving it, and saying we are united, has given us a strategic advantage that Donald Trump never imagined we'd have. Worse than that, we now know that Trump continues to express an interest in taking our territory, just as he does about, as in his speech to Congress the other night, Greenland will get it one way or the other. These are illegal threats. It's important. It's part of our ability as a country to stare down the increasingly erratic, unhinged threats from Donald Trump.
You know what's interesting as well? Because they are being wronged by Trump, there is an ability for them to rally across political lines and unite in a way that Americans aren't going to around this, because a lot of people correctly understand that Trump's being cray. And so their unity, I think, will serve, as she referenced, as a strategic advantage. But it's not like the solution for Americans is to unite around Trump's actions here, but instead, hopefully, to ultimately unite around getting him to stop. One moment I didn't get to from the press secretary's press briefing, Caroline Leavitt, was her just taking reality and flipping it upside down. Listen to how she describes tariffs here.
When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs. And I'm curious why he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is...
Care Bear. Hey, Carrie, stop. Put her back on screen. Hey. Love it or leave it, live it. Have you seen that show, Jane? Love it or leave it? All right, cool. What are you doing? You know, at what point do you just not do that? Wow. She says tariff is a tax cut for Americans. It's literally not even just, if you look at the down. No, it's literally, you can take her off the screen now. It's literally a tax increase. It is why am I explaining this? You know, but U.S. companies having to pay more when they import something. What? Imagine if Biden did that. Yes, actually, inflation is making things cheaper for you. Yeah. Except it won't even be comparable because Biden wasn't doing inflation, whereas they're doing the tariffs. I cannot believe. How do you say that with a straight face? Then this clip, I almost specifically picked because someone clipped it in the most hilarious way imaginable. Watch a Republican congresswoman try to answer this brutal question.
Target and Best Buy said last week that prices are going up in direct relation to the tariffs. Is that a good thing for your constituents on Staten Island and beyond?
I mean, but the tariffs...
Target...
That's where this account cut it off. Watch it one more time.
Target and Best Buy said last week that prices are going up in direct relation to the tariffs. Is that a good thing for your constituents on Staten Island and beyond?
I mean, but the tariffs...
It's so tragic. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that's all we need to hear, because whatever she's about to say is surely going to be, well, everything was great when Trump was... Then you have Tim Burchett, and he's fed up. He's fed up that people would dare to be upset with DOGE cutting things that's not waste, but they're pretending like it is.
We just had a meeting just now in oversight. There are 7 days. Somebody said, well, it's just so infantile, it's so small. And then it turned out, I asked, was it a percentage? And they said 7 to 8%, over $150 billion that is being misdirected or stolen or whatever through fraudulent or human error.
I'm just trying to have
Why don't you embrace that? Why don't you all at CNN want
I'm trying to do a little math with you. I'm trying to do some math with you, talking about math that people
you all do not support one cut. CNN, you all do not support one dadgum cut in any of this stuff. You're trying to use the lowest denominator. You're trying to scare the most people to drive the train against Trump, and it's not working. The American people.
Do you drive a train? Maybe you drive it. Do you drive a train? Maybe you drive it.
Are not buying it, and you all have made a huge error in this because
we're looking at
unbelievable waste.
I'm looking at the numbers.
No, ma'am,
I'm looking at the numbers that DOGE has put out themselves. They say they're cutting contracts that have already ended. They say they're cutting a big amount. It turns out it's actually a smaller amount. That's just math, Congressman, and we're going to continue to keep looking at the math.
Are you saying there's not? Are you saying there's not? Well, look at the math. Are you saying there's not billions of dollars of waste, abuse, and fraud in federal government? Are you trying to say that? Because everybody out there knows
I don't
it.
need to tell you that. There's CBO estimates.
And
that's what we're trying to discuss is the actual number. We're trying to have, at least I'm trying to have an honest conversation with you about the numbers and CBO estimates and the numbers that experts on this topic expect there to be. Congressman Tim Burchett, thanks for joining us.
Unnamed experts, thank y'all so much for having me.
You are a total fraud. Thank you so much for having me, Brianna. You disgust me every day I wake up. This was delightful. Have a good evening. Tim, look at you, throw that back up. That's the look of someone who wants to be one of the Republicans who can go and clash on TV with liberal hosts, but doesn't exactly nail it. You are looking at lowest common denominator and trying to railroad. You're trying to train tracks Trump, and it's not. The American people are daggum sick of it. The thing is, we all want waste, fraud, and abuse to be outed. You're just apparently really bad at it, or there's less than we thought. And this is what they keep doing is they'll say there's so much fraud, and you'll go, oh, give me an example. And they'll go, trans surgeries on mice. You'll go, well, that didn't happen. And they'll go, so what? So you're saying there's no fraud then? No, there might be, but I can tell you, you're not going to find $1 trillion of it as they're acting like. So we see your game. We want the waste to be cut out, but we don't want you to use that as a smoke screen so that you can cut non-waste for people who need it. A great example is they're telling lies about Social Security and the numbers of people that are receiving Social Security fraudulently, and they just lied about it. But now you can imagine them adding more obstacles and cutting funds and then saying, no, sorry, that was to restrict the fraud that's going on that we lied about. And then people who need the benefits don't get them. Even more common than people receiving benefits when they're not supposed to is people not receiving benefits because of the checks in place and the restrictions and obstacles to make sure fraud doesn't happen. A lot of times that accidentally overcompensates and people don't receive checks for a certain number of months when they should have. Then Tim Burchett on the funding battle going on as we record this segment in the House said this, and I'm going to be honest. I'm more interested in one particular thing I picked up on in this than the actual full substance of it. Let's watch.
But you are the one who decides that, essentially.
I am.
And you have not, it's 9:26 p.m. and you have not decided how you're going to vote tomorrow.
That's correct. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Could President Trump sway your vote with a phone call?
Yeah, possibly.
Because he did on the budget resolution last month.
Yeah, and because he made some commitments in that. But and if he commits that we are going to audit the Pentagon, we are going to look at decreasing the amount of money that they get. It's not my dad's warfare anymore. Daddy fought in the Pacific, the Second World War. My mama flew an airplane during the Second World War, lost her brother fighting the Nazis. But when Daddy was in the Pacific fighting the Japanese, Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and the economic might of the country revs up. 6 months later, we're going across the Pacific.
How are you going to vote on the funding bill? Oh my gosh. Why is this taking... I'm so grateful for your family's service, and the loss of life is tragic, and I thank them for their patriotism. And also, Daddy, is that still a thing? I think if you're a dad's age, maybe we lose the daddy when you describe your father. I don't know. Whatever. That's right. Wow. But that was my daddy fought in the really, Daddy? I don't know. I feel like we've sort of put that on the Rob Schmidt said, yeah, the Dow is plunging. This is happening because we have a president with the balls to undo a globalist economic agenda that's decimated American wages and quality of life. This is the pain that comes from real change. It's much easier to just pass the buck. What is it with MAGAs and they're talking about Trump's situation down there? We hear this a lot. You remember to Dan Bongino, Donald Trump has watermelon balls, or what was it? Something like that. Maybe not coconut. What was it, Jaden? I think it was avocado. No, avocado. No, it was bigger than avocados. for sure.
Bowling balls.
Something like that. But as they say this, oh, no one cares. Stock market, temporary pain because everything was bad under Biden, even though it was better, but it was bad. They are being reminded by a lot of accounts that Trump would post stuff like this. Stock market's crashing. I told you so. Kamala doesn't have a clue. Biden's sound asleep. All caused by inept U.S. leadership. And that was probably like a 0.5% drop. And now we're seeing orders of magnitude larger than that in negative stock market performance. And Trump saying it's no biggie. And he recently said, I don't really watch the stock market. And even people like Doug Ducey on Peter Ducey on Fox News are having a difficulty defending this.
This is a White House that came in trying to get federal workers to retire by the hundreds of thousands. But it's tough to make the argument that you should retire if your retirement accounts are getting throttled, which is what is happening right now.
Yeah. So even some Fox News reporters saying that. You also have Mike Johnson saying this.
The market plunged yesterday. It's going down again today. Part of the reason is because of President Trump's policies on tariffs, including the ones that were just introduced this morning. Can you comment here? Does Trump need to rethink what he is doing, given the chaos that we're seeing in the stock market?
This is how I feel about it. Many of us feel about it. The president has already proven what he can do on the economy. This is not theoretical. Look at the first term of the Trump administration. Prior to COVID, we've talked about this many times in here. After the first 2 years of the Trump administration, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. Go check it. We had every demographic was doing better.
Okay, so then they go into that talking point again. You know, friend of the show, Josiah, you know him, you love him. He has used the analogy before, or the metaphor, or both, that what happened with the Trump example is under the Obama years, credit who you want, but it was while Obama was president, he was building a skyscraper and they got 100 stories, right? And then Trump got elected and came in and built one story, maybe. And then MAGA went, see, Trump built all 101 stories. He built the largest skyscraper in history. I know that's not the largest skyscraper. I'm just thinking, bear with me. Okay. And then during COVID, he mismanaged the crisis and the entire skyscraper collapsed. And they said that was not Trump's fault. Okay. Then Biden comes into office. Now it's collapsed. And he builds it all the way back up. And maybe we say it gets to 90, 95 stories. Trump comes into office, and this time, instead of not really letting the construction crew do what they were doing before and just kind of wait till he can take credit for some stuff, this time he put a bunch of dynamite in it. And so the first batch has already gone off of dynamite. And so Mike Johnson is saying, wait, don't worry about the dynamite, because last time 101 stories were there before it all collapsed at the end of his presidency. So, but ignore the end part, and it was pretty aight. It's like, well, he didn't really do that, but okay, yeah, things before pandemic were fine because of what he inherited. But last time he didn't put dynamite in the building. So no, I'm worried about the dynamite. Okay, I don't care about the first. I'm worried about the dynamite. He didn't do any dynamite last time to this extent. But amid all of this, people like Laura Trump are on Fox News saying this.
We cannot survive as a country. So people ought to be kissing the feet of Elon Musk and Donald Trump for being the two people to actually do this.
We should be kissing the feet. We should be kissing the feet of Elon and Trump, she says. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you want to kiss the feetsies of Elon and Donald? You can tell me.